Hello? 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 Hello?
Hello. I can see you. And I think it's. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, and I think you could connect with your system now, Abi.
Yeah. I'm on my system, so I can also use video, so that's fine.
Oh, fine. Okay, so I'll just start with some. You
No,
can just
don't
go in the
start.
background. No. I'm just going to play some stuff. I'm just playing some stuff in the background. Yeah.
All right. So we still have 10 minutes.
Yes.
All right, fine. I'll be there. Thank you.
All right.
I didn't think that I can do it. It was.
Wow, what an exciting journey it has been so far. But we're not resting on our laurels. We are looking to the future.
That's right, and there's no better place to start our environmental journey than from Lagos, a mega city of about 18 million people. But no matter where we go, we often get asked why recycling plays such a big role in Africa. Do you have any answers, Sharon?
Yes, when I look back, we just did not have so much in the past. But as the continent continues to get richer and cities grow, production and consumption has increased like never before. There is more plastic, more paper, and even more e-waste. And in Africa, we have a way of finding new creative uses for these everyday items, which otherwise would fill trash bins.
Indeed, Sharon, they will fill our trash bins. But guess what? We have a knack of turning this creativity into a business, like our next pioneering project, the Recycle Point, which uses its collecting and sorting hubs to nudge people to recycle, while having the added benefits of creating jobs for the locals.
The Nigerian commercial capital of Lagos is drowning in waste. There's so much of it that drainage systems and waterways get blocked, which creates a serious flooding risk. Chioma Okonu wanted to change that. She's the founder of Recycle Point, a company that creates incentives to recycle waste, such as plastic bottles and pure water sachet.
From pure water sachet to pellets and finally to shopping bags. Rather than throwing away the pure water sachet after taking the content and clogging our landfill and drainages and waterways and littering our streets, we can actually use them as raw materials for a new product.
The company sends out a so-called waste buster to registered households and businesses. It picks up everything that can be recycled, including plastic bottles, glass bottles, cans and cardboard. In return, The participants receive points they can redeem for household items.
Every time they come, I make about 300 points. And they come 3 or 4 times in a month. It's profitable because they are making everywhere to be clean for me in my own areas.
One PET bottle, for example, equals 1 point. For 5,000 points or 5,000 bottles, recyclers can get a carton of noodles, for example. That may not seem like much, but for many people, every bit helps. The waste is sorted and crushed and sold to recycling plants. That allows the company to turn a profit. Turning trash into cash is an idea that Chioma Ukonu hopes will catch on, and she wants to raise environmental awareness.
We usually introduce waste recycling to a community, to different communities by first of all organizing what we call the green rallies, where we, unclog the clogged drainages and litter streets, we sweep and clean. And as we're doing that, we are equally teaching the community dwellers about waste recycling, sorting their waste, in that we sort the waste that are even generated in that exercise.
That help is urgently needed. Lagos State produces about 10,000 tons of waste per day. Too much for the municipal waste collection to handle. Residents appreciate the opportunity to reduce their impact on the environment, and so do local companies.
As a bank, we produce quite a lot of waste. And now, instead of that just going to some regular landfill and polluting the environment, we find that we are being an even more socially responsible citizen, because we know that working with a trusted partner like Recycle Points, the huge amounts of waste that we do produce as a bank ends up somewhere good.
More and more people are joining Recycle Points. Chioma Ukonu says the venture has been a success.
We have about 6,000 households registered on our platform, and that's under the household recycling scheme, because we have both the household recycling scheme, the corporate recycling scheme, and the school recycling scheme, because we took this to the schools to be able to catch the young ones as early as possible, to start that culture change from an early stage. And it's been a fantastic ride so far.
Today, just a small fraction of the Lagos's waste is recycled. That leaves Recycle Points with plenty of opportunity to expand its business.
Well, it's great that she recently won an award for her business idea. She will be able to invest the $200,000 prize money. Enti, did you know that Kenya has the largest wind power farm in Africa? It is located in one of the driest parts of my country. But also I'm seeing that you're not really lacking in wind here in Nigeria.
No, Sharon, not in my country. Like the beach where we are now, sometimes you get here and the winds are just amazing. For instance, well, so just take that out. Now, you see, it may not be as much as it used to be usually. And incidentally, I think we could actually set up one of those wind parks right here.
Absolutely, and it would be a good step in solving one of Africa's biggest problems, that is power outages. And Turkana region of Kenya, let's head over there to that mega wind farm and see how the area is benefiting from this project.
365 wind turbines located in one of the windiest areas of Kenya. The Lake Turkana Wind Power Project is the largest private investment in Kenya at $670 million and the largest wind farm in Africa. It's owned by, among others, a number of Scandinavian investors. There's wind pretty much non-stop in this area of northwestern Kenya.
It has incredibly steady winds throughout the year. It's only very rare, 3, 4, 5 days a year maybe, that we have actually no wind here, but 360 days of the year we can produce power.
Technician Wellington Otieno is making his daily routine checks.
Currently we have not gone to full-time operation, but given that we are using equipment that needs maintenance, needs annual checkups, others needs quarterly, daily checkups. So we have all these maintenance sheets that we need to always go through, make sure our equipments are safe, they are healthy and ready to give power to Kenya.
The wind farm is not yet on the grid. The lines to connect the plant aren't ready, much to the annoyance of Wellington Otieno. The state-owned contractor is behind schedule. But the substation that will distribute the electricity is already operational.
After the collection, this is the point where the power comes in. So at this point, we have the power. The only thing we do at the primary substation is actually to step up the voltage that we are getting, then feed to the government substation.
Wind power accounts for less than 1% of Kenya's power supply. Almost 50% comes from geothermal energy, and more than a third from hydropower. Once operational, the wind park will provide 15% of the nation's electricity, with an aim to decrease the use of fossil fuels.
So you can take the population of Nairobi, then that gives you almost the number of homesteads that the power that Lake Turkana wind power will be giving can give to Kenya.
Farmers live close to the wind park. Sarima, their village, was relocated by 1 kilometer to make way for an access road. 150,000 acres of community land was allocated to the investors. There are disputes about whether or not the locals were adequately consulted. Kenyan courts ordered both sides to seek mediation for an amicable settlement. John Ekowom is a resident of Sarima and a defender of the wind farm. He hopes Sarima too will get the clean and cheap energy, helping the village to develop.
We will use the electricity for education.
Okay, thank you very much, Tito, and thank you everyone for joining us again. Welcome to the 11th, I believe this is the 11th edition. Welcome to the 11th edition of Green Innovation Talks with me, Mr. Banks. Today we will be taking a walk through the Nigerian plastic recycling market. Plastic is a huge problem everywhere across the world. Plastic has, it has always been explained that over 60% of plastic produced, are littered somewhere, everywhere in the world. So plastic has always been a problem. Also, plastic has always been a major resource, to create several other types of products. So there's actually a market somewhere around within your vicinity, within your area around, plastic recycling. So today we'll be having a very good conversation with me. And our guest today is Mariam Lawani. Mariam Lawani is the founder and also the CEO of Greenhill Recycling. I like to write her off once in a bit and act like I forgot, her startup, which she wants me every time. So, but today I'm not forget. I did not forget your startup. I only wanted to rile you up. So welcome, Mariam.
Thank you, Mr. Banks.
How has it been?
Very well, thank you.
Looking good. How is the lockdown?
Oh, thank you. Lockdown, there's no lockdown for me. We've been working.
You've been working. You guys, you've been collecting all this while.
Yeah, because a lot of waste has been generated, especially when during the total lockdown, a lot of people were at home just buying things, generating waste.
I think when that first time, the first period of lockdown, when there was so much mass hysteria, I think the number of waste that, the household waste that was being generated was about triple the size, of what was being generated, daily. There was a drop within office and commercial space, waste generation, but there was an increase around household and health waste.
Yeah, absolutely.
Around that. Yeah. So today we'll be talking about your industry, recycling, and most importantly, plastic. You've been in the plastic industry for over 5 years now, I believe.
Not up to 5 years, Mr. Banks. So officially, we started in 2016. Okay. We got registered in 2016. So 4 years. But 4 years. Let me say 4 years.
So tell us about Greenhill. Why Greenhill?
Right. Okay. So Greenhill. Why Greenhill? Okay, I'll start with why Greenhill, and then before I talk about what Greenhill does. I got tired. I got tired of getting stuck in. Okay, so where I live, down the street where I live, there's usually this massive influx of plastics and basically flood that could hinder you from even getting to work. I was working at the time actively, and you could be sure that whenever it rained, that's the end. You get to work late. You could even get to work messed up, by flood and everything, so it was a concern for me. I would see that when the rain recedes, you will see a lot of plastics, a lot of, styrofoam, those things on the streets, messing up, making the place look, you know, untidy. And it still happens till date, unfortunately, but not as much on my streets
I mean, we saw
anymore.
those very, very gruesome pictures of
In
some parts
Surulere
of Surulere.
recently.
Funny enough, I used to stay in Surulere quite a while ago. And somewhere around that area, I woke up one very good morning and my car was all submerged, in water.
In waste,
in waste rather, not just water. So yes. So now, please continue your story, please.
Yeah. So all that just got me very inquisitive, and then at the time, it just so happened that I was listening. It was like it was coming to me. I was listening on the radio one day. I heard some one of the first pathfinders in this industry in Nigeria, I would say, talk about the fact that money was just lying on the streets and people were not disciplined enough, So all of that together got me very inquisitive, and I started doing my research, and I actually found out that the plastics that hinder me from getting to work on time and causes flood and everything could be a resource. It could be something valuable if we got the dynamics right and we turned it into that. And that was how Greenhill started. So Greenhill seeks to address the poverty and unemployment issues in Nigeria first, and then Africa at large, using recyclable solid waste as the currency of exchange. And that's where the difference is, right? Because if we were to put some value that is universal, that people know, to these plastic wastes, we won't see plastics lying on the streets. We won't see them in the gutters. We won't see people. I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to say. We won't see them, right? So we are trying to address that issue. We know that we have unemployment. We know that we have poverty, in our nation. And we're trying to see how we can create so much value that will command so much value that plastic becomes a currency of exchange where people can buy and sell with, if that's, it could be.
Yeah, so help us understand. I mean, I like the fact that you look beyond this passion, beyond just wanting to solve a problem, but also putting a business model around it. So can you help me understand how this business model works, right? How do you create this impact? How do you merge that whole people, planet, and profits together as a business? You create the impact, create the jobs, and then the next thing, you're also, solving unemployment, solving problems. So can you help me understand how this model works around unemployment, poverty, and plastics?
Yeah, so first of all, we when I was going through that research, I realized that there was a gap, right? The materials that these plastic wastes could be turned into, the industries or the players in those industries have a short, they have a shortage of inflow, right, of these raw materials that they require to produce those products. And I will go into the details, what some of the raw materials that we collect and some of the end products that we could get from them, right? So that in itself is one gap, one issue. So it now becomes, okay, how do we get, and on the other hand, you see plastics lying on the streets indiscriminately everywhere, every day, up until today as we speak. So the issue now becomes, how do we get these plastic waste lying on the streets or not even getting to the streets in the first place, not getting to the dumps in the first place, from the homes and the places where this plastic waste have been generated, to these guys or to these industries that have a shortage, that have a limitation. And so how our model works in all of that mix is we give people the opportunity. So when we come to you, we speak to you, we enlighten you, we tell you the reason why you should, start to recycle your waste. We do that one-on-one. We use media to do that, across social media platforms and all that. So when we've done that education, we've given you that enlightenment, we tell you, we provide you with a bag, or sometimes some people use their own bags. We tell you, you know what, keep these plastic materials for us. We would come to you once every week and pick up from you. When we pick up from you, we give you what we call green points, right? These points, a plastic bottle is equal to 1 point, right? So these points would accumulate over a period of time, and then you can now get value, in exchange for your points. So it's like a delayed gratification kind of thing. One, to make people get on board the culture of recycling, right? That's one of the reasons why we do that. Because if you do something, they say when you repeat something over a period of time, it becomes a habit. Yes. So so we come to you once every week. We pick up. When we pick up, we count or we weigh. We issue you with a card where we register the weight or the points that you've accumulated, so that you also can keep track. So after a period of time, you can actually redeem these points with an item of value. Items range from as little as a recharge card to maybe a 5 kg bag of rice, an electric kettle, electric iron, home appliances, or even very recently to pay fees, school fees we partnered with African Cleanup Initiative, an NGO that, uses plastic waste to pay the fees of children in low income schools. And so that's why I said this value thing, right? I imagine you paying your electric bills, right? With plastic bottles. Imagine going to a filling station and you could get one liter of fuel with plastic bottles. So that's the thing. When we can put that value to it, that is generally known and people can relate regardless of your status in life, right? Because you can say, oh, low income earners, they can't even pay money for their children's school fees anyways. So, you could have that argument. But how about the guy that drives a 4x4 and knows that, yes, even though he can afford it, just being disciplined enough to collect his plastic bottles and drop them off, at a fuel station would earn him a little extra on his fuel. I mean, that's something, right?
For us also at the NCIC, so there was a time we thought about this model around plastic for transportation. And we think that with this value that you have shared, it just brought back, just gave me back that memory. And I remember how we're having, quite a number of conversations on plastic for transportation, with the BRT system. How do we create that model? Which again, I think is just about the same model, that you shared. But do you think that plastic for transportation is something that can work?
Yeah, it could work. I think it could work, but there has to be several stakeholders have to play a role, right? Because in the plastic business in itself, you could say that if you're not operating at scale, right, the margins are slim. So in that plastic for transportation kind of thing, I think there has to be a private-public partnership arrangement, sort of, where maybe some of subsidy, could be attached, to make the whole process seamless and to make the recyclers or aggregators still be able to go home, put a smile on their faces and be able to put food on their table. You see what I mean? So, but it could work. It's working in Norway, I think. There's some countries right now that they just have to show, So when I say stakeholders, the government has a role to play. There are several the producers of the plastics themselves have a role to play, you know. So there's several stakeholders that can come and make that conversation work, but it can work. If plastics can be used to pay school fees, why can't plastics be used to pay? And this is outside any government in what's it called? This plastics for, you know, recycle space and using plastics to pay the fees of children. It's outside any government intervention. So imagine when you now have those sort of partnerships on different levels. I think it could work. I think it's doable.
All right. So now that we've both been able to establish some form of understanding around the markets, right? And you've seen how these markets can move from being impact driven, for at the same time being merging up income, income gaps. So can you help me understand this market, this plastic market? We know that plastic, has got a lot of possible outcomes, when it's being used. We've got those who use them, for the mattresses, and those who use them, for to make other sort of plastics and so that means that there's actually a sizable growing market that has been there over time. Can you help us estimate how this market looks in Nigeria, and what are those things that is making this market, this plastic recycling market, not be a mainstream industry?
Absolutely. Okay, so I would use a 2018 report, World Bank report. As at 2018, and we're in 2020 now, so you can begin to add up, right? But I mean, it's the most, you see numbers, figures flying here and there, but I would choose this because it's World Bank, right? As at 2018, Lagos State generates over 730,000 tons, right? 730,000 tons of plastic waste every year. Every year, right?
Annually.
That's Lagos State annually, right? But of course, we know that figure is far, maybe even double that
by now.
Double the figure right now, by now, exactly, right? And we don't even, I'm sure these studies are from companies that would, let out their productions. That would let out their productions every year. We haven't even looked at some of all those companies that produce, some funny names of bottled water that we don't, you know what I'm trying to say. So let's even give an estimate to say, let's even say 100,000 tons, right, of plastics every year. And according to that report, by 2025, Lagos, that volume would grow by 4.6%, bringing it to a volume of about 1.9 million
2025.
tons. Yeah, in 2025, according to that World Bank report, that volume would increase by 9.6%, bringing it to a total of 1.9 million tons. Now, a ton of plastic bottles is about, so let me begin to give you an idea. A ton is 1,000 kilograms, which is about, say, between 50 to 55,000 75 cl bottles, right? If 75, I don't want to use any brand, but those 75 cl bottles, right? So between 50, 55, 60,000 bottles would make 1 ton. So when we now begin to talk about 1.9 million tons, we have an idea of what we're talking about. So yes, some of these plastics, some of them are being collected. Between 5 and 9% currently is recycled, is collected and recycled currently. So you know that there's a huge market that is,
it's not even up to 10%.
Not even
if we generate sorry to cut it short, but if we generate, say, about 800,000 tons in a year, judging by that number, that means that we can't even do up to 80,000 in terms of recycling.
We are not doing up to that volume in terms of recycling, right? even most of the materials that had been, it's just very recently that some of us are trying to bring some form of structure. You know, some formal recycling companies are bringing some form of structure to the game, right? What you would find in the past, about 6, 7, 8 years ago, would be a very fragmented sector, you know, where you have waste pickers exposing themselves to very hazardous conditions on the dumps. It still happens, unfortunately, on the dumps. You know, they scavenge for these materials. At the end of the day, some of them even lose their lives because they catch on all sorts of terrible diseases.
All sorts of terrible diseases.
You know, so it's just very recently, 6, 7 years ago, that some of us recycling companies, some of them before us, and you know, many more that are springing up now, are trying to bring some form of formal, you know, making the whole process formal. So when we collect these materials, PET, for instance, that's your plastic water bottle or your beverage, the PET bottle. Some of them are used locally to create what we call fiber, polyester fiber, which are the stuffings of your pillow or some of your mattresses. Most of them are exported. Some of them are turned into flakes and exported out of the country. Some of them are reused, you know, to produce, very recently, food grade packaging, you know, reused into making other types of plastics that could be good enough to repackage food, you know, reused into plastics, you know. It's called RO-PET. You know, you turn that recycled PET into a new type of plastic. You know, some other types of plastics that are not PET could be reused into your buckets, your your bowls, your ropes, your hangers. You know, so there are variety. There are lots of there's a huge variety of materials that the waste, as we call it, because we don't believe that there's waste. In Greenhill, we say plastic is a resource in motion. It's just moving from one place to another. We don't call it waste, you know. So there are a variety of materials that could be derived from this end product. If only we could attach the value that is necessary to it, and if only consumer behavior could, you know,
okay, so before we come to consumer behavior and that value, right? Can you help me understand this dumpster solution? So, one of the things that have always been a problem that I've seen are the pickers of plastic in many of these dump sites. Just you know, like you mentioned, it's a very hazardous role. You know, from stings to bites to burns to cuts, infections and co.
Exactly.
But what do you think that we can really do on this dumpster solution?
Right. So one thing I think we can do is to formalize these guys, right? Get them out of that space that they're in, provide adequate and dignifying uniforms, you know, for them, attach them to formal recycling aggregators. There are existing formal recycling aggregators, more and more sprouting up across Lagos State and across the country as we speak. Because why are they doing these things? They're doing it because they want to earn a living, because they just want to put food on their table, because they don't feel as though there is any other, you know, way that they can. It's just the easiest and the most accessible, if you in quote, that they kind of job that they can quickly get their hands on. So if they're formalized, give them health insurance, give them, you know, have these things that make them want to get out of that mess that they're in, and then attach them to formal recycling aggregators, right? So they would still be sorting, because what they're doing right now, scavenging, they're sorting in disguise. Some of them are they are very, and they're very organized though. If you go to those dumps,
like they put their underground system, and everything all goes down to one guy.
I'm telling you, they have a lord and master, you know. that they all, and that's the painful part, they expose themselves to all of these hazards, and they get peanuts, you know. So they simply work, most of them work for somebody else. They have these unions and all of these things that go on there. Some of them, and they are very, what's the word now? Focused on a particular stream of waste. You see the ones that are scrambling from plastic, the ones that are scrambling for LDPs, those for metals, for aluminum. They are very, they don't mix. They don't mix and match.
You don't see a plastic guy picking a metal guy. So that means that if at that capacity of underground or underserved community, right, they understand the process of exactly one stream. Then that means
and
that
they understand the sorting, exactly. They even understand the sorting and separation. Imagine that.
So
they understand the sorting and separation.
Yeah, we shouldn't have a problem trying to build a capacity, awareness around using plastic cups and putting it in the right, in the right bin, and using paper and putting it in the right bin.
Well,
which brings me back to that conversation of consumer behavior. So
we know
that it is. We know that behavioral issues is always is a huge sell, right? It doesn't change overnight. But how do we tell ourselves to really stick to sorted bins, like those multi aspect kind of bins? How do you think that we can work around this?
So you see, it's interesting that we started from these guys in the dump sites, and it just struck me now that, okay, wait a minute, these guys at their level actually understand sorting. They actually understand sorting, even if it's for them to earn a living, even if they don't understand the they don't understand it up to the details, but they understand sorting. So you begin to wonder why it's so difficult to talk to people who are even more literate, even way more literate, to sort their waste. It's funny. Now that I talk about it, it's actually very funny, because you hear all sorts of things. How much you go pay me? Why I go keep my waste for you? Waiting you go give me. Even when you say things, even when you let them understand that, you know what, this waste comes back to haunt you. I beg you, forget. Also, we hear all sorts of things, right? And that's why we came up with this incentive scheme where we can actually give people value. So it comes back to that value. If there is everybody has to push it. Now we have policies around breaking environmental laws, and there are all sorts of policies. There are all sorts of things written on paper. But if we were implementing these things, it will make that entire consumer behavior change, right? Because people feel like it's such a bother. Why should I sort my waste and separate it and put it into different colors? No, it's too much stress. It's too much stress. Why should I do that? So I still think that the way around that would be having an acceptable, universally, when I say universally now, I mean nationally acceptable value. People know that one plastic bottle is 5 naira, as little as that, or 1 naira, or whatever. They can do the math. They can add it up and say, okay, you know what? If I have 100 of these plastics, 100 naira be that too. It begins to change behavior. You see, when you tell people, don't throw that thing.
Just hold on, Mariam, just hold that thought. But do you think that in trying to build that kind of value and also awareness, do you think that there need to be some sort of a guideline, sort of like a market pricing guideline, either developed by, I don't know if there's an association of, recyclers, recyclers in Nigeria, or whether it has to be done by maybe the Ministry of Waste, the Department of Waste, or environment. Do you think that it is ideal that if there is some form of industry framework around the plastic industry, it will help us that are non players in that group to know that while we generate this waste, we can also see that value and just know what we can be earning, at that point.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That framework is very necessary because as we speak now, there are fluctuations, You can't say the price of plastic, even to your customer, would be the same across the year. It fluctuates. Supply and demand and several other factors. Some of them is even monopoly that brings about those fluctuations. Yeah.
There is even monopoly within the plastic.
and that's
So while we wait for her, this is actually a very interesting conversation, right? And I would like to also, carefully indulge our viewers out there. If you've got a question, please put it in the Q&A session. And once Mariam, bounces back, we can dwell on the answers. But again, carrying out this conversation, you can hear clearly well, some of the challenge, some of the issues that we've seen around this plastic industry. So we've always shared this thought around why we think that there's already an existing market in some of these unstructured markets. And so with what we've heard so far around how there is a structured, or rather an unstructured structured, model around how plastics are being generated and how plastic waste are being collected in most of the dump sites, in all of these underserved communities. But again, that the business model around plastic is also a business model that needs to be well understood. Do we need to have those pricing frameworks? Do we need to have some form of guidelines that help us understand what do you expect from someone who is coming to pick out your waste? Like, how useful is this, and how do we tie this synergy, between the Environment Ministry, who are also in charge of waste, waste collection, and all the private, waste collection businesses. So these are some of the thoughts that we think that when Mariam bounces back, that we can have and share some insights around this area. But before we do that, we've seen a few points and a few questions around, plastic. And one of those questions that have been resounding, or rather rebounding around, is that, about the government being critical, or rather being the sole reason for the plastic industries to scale. I really think that the government can only be a part of that solution, not the totality of the solution. Because if we approach some of these new industries from a government perspective, it also reduces, some of the insights that you will get around the market. And largely, when it's private sector driven, then it allows for government to be able to not tag along, but also grow along with that industry when it comes to knowledge. And currently, we have the the EPR, the Extended Producers Responsibility framework, or rather guidelines, that is being designed by NESRIA. And this guidelines also puts producers of waste as being responsible to the last point of consumption of their products. And I hope that in our next season we can get someone from NESRIA to come share insights, or someone from the Extended Producers community to come share a little bit of this point with us in days to come. So we think that government is a part of the solution. Private sector is also largely a part of the solution, and also you and I, who are the consumers of this product, we also play a very huge role in trying to scale the growth of the of the plastic market. So while we're waiting for Mariam, I will also try and go through a few of these questions. First, from the ones that I've seen in the chat, which I've said, please direct your questions to the Q&A, and then we can find a way, to answer these questions. But again, the market, like we said, it's not necessarily a new market, but it's just an underserved and on the ground market. Most of the conversations we've had around this part, I've always shared, thoughts around things like that. Mariam,
Yes.
welcome.
Thank you. I'm so sorry.
So I was trying to, share a few thoughts around why we think that government is not the only person, or rather the only group of stakeholders that is in charge of scaling, the plastic market, right? We have a few questions around, and I just quickly made a glean through to see that, government has been a resounding conversation. Now, can you help us understand how can government help this sector grow? Right. Okay. That's a fantastic question. I can see you smiling. It sounds like you're really to say a lot. This is not a government show, please. I hope the necessary stakeholders are listening. I hope the necessary stakeholders are listening, right? So there are a variety of things that the government can do to help this industry grow. I mean, the more you would not believe the number of calls we get, number of messages we get from everywhere. People say, oh, I want to start this, I want to start this business, I want to start this business. There are young people who are willing, who are resilient, who are ready to work. But is the environment enabling enough? Yes. Some of the things that the government can do, could be allocating. Space is a major constraint when it comes to recycling, collection, even at any scale you want to operate, whether you want to be an aggregator or, an end producer or whatever, so government could help by allocating portions, spaces for young people who are willing to get into this business. I mean, maybe for a couple of years, 2-3 years, after which they can start maybe collecting maybe some form of levy, or the government could also help by giving a tax waiver. You won't believe that we pay tax, even though we are, helping the environment in a major. Yeah. In a major way for a couple of years. The government could also implement some of these laws. There are so many things that they write. Oh, EPRO, extended producer responsibility, where the producers of this material, you're laughing. Where the producers of this... I just shared a little bit of insight around EPR. So oh, you did when I wasn't here, right? Yes. Can you just help us understand, how this EPR works? Because I still hope to bring someone from Nigeria, in coming weeks to have this conversation around. I wish I would be there in that meeting. But just help us overview as a major player around this extended users' responsibility. Yeah. So ideally, the producers, the big players in this industry that package their product in plastic, materials, are supposed to, based on their market share, based on their sales and their market share, they're supposed to be able to put out a certain amount that goes into the collection, because they're supposed to be responsible for the entire life cycle of their products. And apart from looking at even the design, producing materials that are easy to recycle from where they are being up onto where they are sold and then recovered from the environment. It shouldn't just end at, oh, we sell our product, people are happy with our product, and that's it. You should be responsible enough to set aside a certain, amount that should be used, regulated by, of course, a body, maybe like, the Food and Beverage Recycling Alliance is an alliance like that now, regulated, that goes back into mopping up your product from the environment. So that's how the EPRO is supposed to work. There are lots of, after this we can go and read up. There are lots of things. If you go to Nesra, like you said, website and all that. There's lots of rules and laws around this, but are they implemented? Your guess is as good as mine. So these are some of the ways that the government can help to build this industry and get it to grow. I can go on and on, but it's okay. It's okay, because with the way you smelled at first, I said, Gengem, she's out for the government people. Oh no, we're gonna hear a lot about it. But again,
No.
I'll pick a few questions, right, from our Q&A sessions. If we've answered some, I'm sorry, we cannot, go back to that. So we've got Abraham Williams asking if they can get a reference to that first report that you shared about, plastic waste in Lagos.
World Bank.
It's from the World Bank. If you have a link, if you have that link, you can share with us, and then we can tell, so that the communication team can also share, that context, around it. Then quite a number of people were also asking around the challenges. What are the kind of challenges that you around scaling up this sort of business? We know funds is one of them, but if we strategically park fund aside, what else are those things that you think are really inhibiting growth of the plastic industry in Nigeria, and particularly a business like yours?
So, you know what I can say for free, right? I have, why are you laughing now? I have come to realize over the years, recycling isn't a business to bootstrap. Case closed. End of quotes. End of statement.
All right.
You know how you start small and grow. If it is going to make any sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
You would have to invest. It's capital intensive.
Mm-hmm.
So there is no way to sort of take away the funding. But yes, say you even have the necessary amount of investment, machinery, space, you've got your logistics on point, which is another headache, the logistics bits, moving from point A to point B, gathering these materials and all that. Because people could say, there's plastics everywhere now. It should be easy. It's not just to go on the street and pack it. I wish you luck.
I wish you all that luck.
But even when you move away from all the income, financial constraints and issues around logistics, behavior, you can't take that part away. Consumer behavior.
Okay, I think the network has frozen again. So I'm really enjoying this conversation. I really don't know about the rest of you, but I'm really having a very good time.
And then from the consumer end, from the human resource end, people want more money, people want to be paid more, and by all means, it's justified. But even the consumers that would naturally take these things and trash them, the moment you come to them and let them know, I'm interested in this, she must be making a lot of money from it. She must be making, and money. So it automatically now becomes something of so much, substance. You see what I'm, So these are some of the challenges. You have to talk, you have to enlighten, you have to learn and unlearn, educate and uneducate, so it's just but it's a system that could work and work very well if all the necessary stakeholders pull their weight. We're not pulling our weight in all the areas. It's just some very resilient people, young people like myself, that are pushing so hard. Some other stakeholders are not pulling their weight.
Their weight as how they're supposed to do. And I hope we get to know who the stakeholders are maybe later, so that we can help you find how that can work, as a pressure group related kind of center that we are.
And then, can I just mention policy somersaults? That's another huge thing that the government
policy somersaults,
should just get it right. If we're doing this, let's stick to this. Today it is one thing, tomorrow it's another thing. Some recyclers, some people who are interested in the business have maybe made projections for 5-7 years, around some form of policy. The next thing they come and zoom, it's something different.
Something totally different.
Something totally different. So all of these policies here and there, all of the other ones that have been written down should be implemented. The ones that are written should be implemented. And then if we're going this route, I can stick to that route for a couple of years before you scatter everything.
Okay, do you have like a little bit of example around this policies?
Right. Okay. So
yeah, just a little bit of an example around this
so
counter policy.
Yeah. So if we take Lagos State, for example, where we operate, a couple of years ago, we know about the whole change. You know,
yeah, the PSP and
the Visionscape. When Visionscape came on board, some recycling aggregators felt, oh, this is the end of our lives, because it seemed like all the requirements were just out of this world. It seemed like it wasn't going to be favorable for a startup at all. Yes, we understand that recycling business is capital intensive, right? But there were all sorts of requirements, very, strict rules and things that would hinder somebody who was coming with so much enthusiasm into the space. And then that went, and the Lagos State Loma took over, and then they came up with the Blue Box initiative with some other rules as to what aggregators should have to be able to operate in that Blue Box. And who knows what's going to happen in the next couple of months. So it's just, so that's just
really daunting, right?
That's just one example. But I don't intend to scare anyone off. Please, we need more people in the industry.
Okay, great. So we have another anonymous, attendee asking a question. Just like you, I think you've mentioned, quite a bit, but there is a part of this question that is really striking me. And this person is asking that, how can we make people more interested in recycling, not because of the monetary value, but about saving the planet, because he or she believes this way, everybody else will be really interested in recycling. So instead of really talking about the financial or the monetary value of recycling, why don't we concentrate on the on the climate benefits of recycling? Will this be a better model than knowing who we are as a group of people? And then with your own gift of experience, please just have us quickly throw in a light in like a minute or two around this.
Right. Okay. So it is only a man who is literate enough to understand what the impact of climate change is that you will talk to about the environmental benefits in terms of climate change that would understand it. A man who needs to put food on their table does not understand what climate change is. I'm sorry, right? And we have, unfortunately in Nigeria, we have more of those kinds of people that do not understand the implications, even when they can see it. So we do all that. When we go out and we educate people, we don't just tell them about the value that they would get if they recycle. We educate them about, with a simple example that people can relate with, the sun. It has never been hotter. Now we're even experiencing floods on another level, right? So all this change in weather conditions and all that are things that we tell them to help them relate to the whole concept of climate change. We tell them, since you've been born, has it been this hot? They'll say, no. You see, we explain to them, oh, it's these materials that you drop that when they just, they release toxic gases, they make the environment hot. They'll say, okay. So we do that. We do all of that education, right? But people are hungry. There's a lot of poverty in the land. People need to relate. Yeah, people need to put food on their tables, right? So climate change, look at your budget. How much is given to environment issues? Let's even start to talk about, even as a nation, how much awareness are we giving? How much are we giving to these issues around climate change, around environmental sustainability? Like I say, it's just a few of us that are pushing, right? So I don't want to shift blames to anybody. I am sure you can use your tongue to your teeth to count.
All right.
But
so,
yeah.
So I have this other thought. Oh, hi, Rosalind. Rosalind Aguilmo is sending all the way from Russia, I believe. And she's saying that since China no longer imports waste, how is Nigeria dealing with the backlog? Are there local companies that reprocesses in large quantity, some of these plastics? Can you help us understand that?
Yeah, so like I said earlier, some of this plastic waste are used locally. But even when China closed their borders to us, there are other countries that collect. In the UK, some of the materials that we collect from Nigeria are exported to the UK. At least I know, I can confirm of a particular company that exports to the UK and converts to food grade plastics. Yes.
Yeah.
Venezuela, in the other countries, in the Europe and other countries open their doors to Nigeria. So there's still a market for the recyclable waste. And then of course the volumes that are reused locally. So there's still a huge market for the recyclable waste. And even this China closing door thing we're even talking about, some of the Chinese are still here. They're still here. Yeah.
And they're still in the business of
yes.
Also.
They're still collecting and sending. Where are they sending it to?
So that means that, I mean, with some of the information, with some of the conversations, points that you've dropped in, I think we still keep seeing the need for a more harmonized data around the plastic recycling market, not to talk about the metal recycling or bio waste recycling market. So I think that data, someone needs to work around how this data can be harmonized,
captured.
Yeah, because when I see the work that one of our partners, Olon, is doing in the power sector, and it helps me understand, Olon in one way or the other just helps us understand some of these policy somersaults, that you've said, and how this can be harmonized. And they are really doing a very great work around harmonizing, policies, structures, and also finances within the renewable energy sector. But within the plastic or waste management sector, is there a body like that from a private sector point of view, not from a not-for-profit or government point of view?
Right, that is trying to come that.
Yeah,
your question
try and harmonize the whole thing together, yeah, and bring out very best of data. Try and show what are the different policies and how they can be harmonized. Sort of like an industry leader. There's looking beyond just the Naira and Kobo, but really trying to scale that market.
Well, when we talk about harmonizing data, right? I know of a few companies, or rather one company that I'm aware of, that is trying to use technology, and that's really the future. If we can, infuse a lot of technology, it would solve a lot of problems in our industry. So trying to use technology, trying to bring in technology into our system, into our processes. Some of us already use it, but on a larger scale where you can sort of get real-time data on materials that are being collected, where they're collected from, where you can sort of have real-time information and data on these. So if one recycler is doing that, or if there's a general database for all of us to sort of back end to put all of this information that we are gathering in our own different spaces, I think it would bring some form of harmony to the sector, so we can categorically say, oh, this volume and this volume, this is what is being, recovered on a daily, on a monthly, on a weekly. Yeah. But so far, that's the only company I know that is trying to sell that product in terms of using technology to make our processes seamless and more effective.
Okay, so let me just quickly throw in this last question before we do final words. So Ruth Pillars is asking, what can you say about recycling electronic waste? I think she sees a huge market, underutilized, and she's not sure if there are any such companies in Nigeria around electronic waste.
Oh, there are. There's a lot going on in Nigeria, please. with so much pride. As you see, I'm raising my shoulders with so much pride. There is so much that is going on in Nigeria that you only need to ask and you would be told. So I am glad that this question came up. I can, from the top of my head, I can talk about eTerra. You can go and check them out. eTerra is into e-waste. There is Hicklin, H-I-C-K-L-E, Hicklin. I'm not sure how it's spelled very well, but H-I-C, they are into e-waste. There are several collectors of e-waste, but yes, there's a huge gap. That we still haven't scratched the surface for all the recyclable waste.
Yes, so I hope we can. I'm sure someone has said Hickley with Adrian.
Hinkley.
Yes. Okay, great, Hinkley. We will try to find them and bring them on our next, in a couple of series to share more insight around this, right? So, Mariam, I really want to thank you, for your time. It's been a very wonderful conversation. Sometimes, time flies while you're having fun. We always try to put ourselves within that box that no matter how much fun that we're having, we should always know when to leave the stage. So we really want to thank you for your efforts, for everything, that you have shared so far. You've really made us understand quite a lot around the plastic, market in Nigeria. Someone would like to connect with you. If you've got an email you'd like to share, or if you've got a website you'd like to share, it would be nice if you can just give us a few final words in 1 minute. How do you see the plastic, industry in 5 years?
Right. So in 5 years, I actually believe that this industry will grow and bloom and begin to command the kind of respect and attention that it deserves. We are having a boom, in terms of population growth. There are estimates of how the population is going to increase. And we know that with population growth, there's a simultaneous increase in waste production. As long as we're alive, we must generate waste. So we must find a way to deal with that waste. And I think in dealing with dealing with waste in the future, in about 5-7 years from now, we won't be sitting here and having this kind of conversations anymore, especially since our oil is failing us. So we will start looking for, so I see this industry bloom. I see this industry grow. There are lots and lots of more young people who want to come in and become players, especially when we bring tech into the waste management. I mean, there are limitless opportunities and the things that we could do with technology in waste management. So please, by all means, this is the time. If you're out there and you're thinking, please come on board. We need more and more people.
You have any website you'd like to share?
Yeah, GHRNG.com. That's my website. That's our website. We also have an association, GHR. I've put it on the chat.
Okay, GHRNG.com. GHRNG.com. Yes.
Yes, and we also have an association of recyclers, Recycler Association of Nigeria. You can hook up with me, and if you're interested to come into that space to play, you can hook up with me, and you would be added on
to the group. All right, Mariam, thank you so much. I think the network has frozen again. So
that association,
so thank you so much. So we've seen that, data is actually a huge gap, within the industry. A coordinating center or platform is also, a sort of solution that can help to drive better policies and harmonize policies. We also see that funding, mind you, is really not a problem, because once the market is structured, the finances will always come in. And then we also saw that technology will play, by technology now, I mean both digital and mechanical or engineering technology, will also support a lot on how this market will scale. Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, Mr. Banks, did you say funding is not a problem?
I said, funding, like I said, right? Funding, as everybody always known, right, is really not that problem. It's when that market is structured that funding always flies around it, which is why every time I always try to ask for challenges, I always tell everyone, can we park funding aside? and just hang it somewhere, and then let's really talk about some other challenges, because once you just leave that door open for funding, that's the only conversation everybody will have.
Yeah, if the environment is more conducive, there will be people who will be willing to invest.
Yeah,
if there's structure.
So we see an emerging market, and a developing economy around the waste, the waste economy. I think that beyond plastic, we hope to have conversations around e-waste, around human waste, agri waste, and quite a number of other type of waste that you might find out there. So Mariam, we really want to thank you for your time.
Thank you. I had so much fun.
Yeah, really had so much fun, and we look forward to having many more of these conversations. I hope one day we can bring all different type of recyclers from different sectors, and then let's weigh and let's share thoughts around how this works. Mariam also shared her email. You can check her out on Mariam Mariam.Lawani at GHRNG and .com, and you can connect with her even much more. So we want to thank everyone who have listened to this edition. We want to tell you thank you for your time. We have a whooping number of people who came to join us from different parts of the world. We want to thank our team and everyone who has also shared insight and also paid your own contribution within this talk. So next week we will be talking about SME financing, green SME financing, and how we can really open up financial instruments, for green businesses. And we'll be having a conversation with Dr. Jubril Adeojo, who is the CEO of SME Funds, and quite a number of consultancy roles around green financing, within the African context. So we'll really like you to join us next week at the same time, 11 o'clock on Thursdays. And so we can share a lot more around, the financing part of all the beautiful conversations we've had in the past 11 weeks. So again, we're still Green Innovation Talks with Mr. Banks, and we are doing this, we are producing this from the Nigerian Climate Innovation Center. Please check it out on all of our social media platforms, and please try to drop us a note or tell us well done, and we'll be very glad that you did. Thank you so much, everybody, and I look forward to catch you again at 4 o'clock. So at 4 o'clock, there's this network called the Circular Economy Innovation Partnership Network that I am also part of, and by 4 o'clock we're having some level of conversation around EPR, around recycling, around investments, and and whatnot. I'm sure if you check our handle, you can see it also, or you go to CEIP_Africa on Twitter, and then you find a lot of this conversation. Thank you, everybody, and I will see you at 4 o'clock. Ciao. Bye-bye. Thank you, Mariam.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you.